Been looking forward to this one for a long time. We got a Sun Belt showdown. The Troy Trojans hosting the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, we'll get to the rest of the Sun Belt. We got the Cajuns trying to hang on to a top 6 seed. Will App State make the tourney? We'll go through all of it. But, of course, it starts and stops basically with Troy and Southern Miss. And basically, although not completely, but basically this is for bragging rights. I guess Troy could sweep Southern Miss and they would tie for second. Doesn't really change much. Although, again, seeding, I guess. One would be 2 and one would be 3. And obviously Troy would move up RPI-wise. Let's just talk where they are now heading into the weekend, okay? Heading into the final series of the season. Southern Miss, I don't think they moved. Did they move? No, they're still 30. They haven't moved. Remember, Northeastern, they moved all the way up to 24 after their win over UConn. Troy is 39. They've actually moved a little bit. They were up to 38. They are now 39th. Okay, so they are not on the bubble as of right now. As long as Troy doesn't get swept, which I guess is a possibility, not likely, but a possibility, because I do think Southern Miss is a better team, although I am picking Troy. And it's taken me 2 minutes and 4 seconds to talk out of both sides of my mouth. A new personal record. As long as they don't get swept, they're going to be fine because they're not going to fall too far. If they lose to Southern Miss, it'll hurt them a little bit because they're losing at home. But Southern Miss has an RPI of 30. So it's not bad losses, obviously. And if they win one, it's going to help them. So they'll be fine. And remember, Troy is the only team in America not to have lost a series yet this year at all. Period. End of story. Now, they haven't swept a series. Didn't sweep the Cajuns. Didn't sweep Arkansas State. Right? They've had chances to do so and have not been able to pull one off. All right. It's going to be a great matchup. All right. Let's see if we can look. Interestingly enough, hitting-wise, Southern Miss is the best hitting team in the conference. They hit 303. Troy is 281. Oddly enough, Troy has more runs than Southern Miss, 396 to 365. Without figuring out who's played more innings, Troy has 20 more at-bats. So not a whole lot more at-bats, and yet 30 more runs. That's pretty good, all right? Although Southern Miss has more than 30 more hits, all right? Southern Miss has 87 home runs to Troy's 61, although Troy has more RBIs. Go figure, all right? That's crazy, all right? A little bit surprising, but Troy's got some bats. Southern Miss's bats are better, all right? Pitching-wise is where it's going to be separated, all right? Southern Miss is the second best pitching team in the conference, right behind Coastal Carolina. They got a 4.12 ERA. Troy's ERA is about a run worse, just over 5. All right. I'm not going to go through all the innings pitched and strikeouts and such like that. But Southern Miss has got a really good pitching staff. Troy's pitching staff isn't awful by any stretch of the imagination, and actually better than I thought it would be. But I think personally there's Coastal's pitching staff, Southern Miss's pitching staff, Arkansas State's pitching staff, and that's about it. Then everybody else is after that. And you just have stars galore in this series, right? From Jay Cook, Caden Bodine, Tucker Stockman. I mean, Nick Monaster, Ben Higdon, Joy Urban. It just goes on and on and on. And of course, pitching wise, and we're going to find out, it's a great opportunity for JB Middleton to make his claim to the Sun Belt Pitcher of the Year. All right. I'll still stand by it. You're going to see co-pitchers of the year. Outside of the fact, if JB Middleton goes in there and throws 7 innings of 1 or 2 run baseball and Southern Miss wins on Thursday night, because if Jacob Morrison is pitching Thursday, he's pitching against ODU. Now, he could have the same outcome, but one is ODU and one is Troy, although I think they're both on the road. Southern Miss is on the road and Coastal is on the road. But one is ODU and one is Troy. All right. With all due respect, it is what it is. And so a chance for JB Middleton to make that claim to pitcher of the year. I still think the Sun Belt's going to cop out and make it co-pitchers of the year. The statistics are just ridiculously close. Ridiculously close. It is what it is. It's going to be fun. It has been a couple of late nights. One was self-induced. Tonight got back late with a work event, but we'll be back early tomorrow. And although the game won't start until 7 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. Central time, we'll be locked in watching that ball game. I'm looking forward to it. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And again, not a lot on the line. I guess Southern Miss thinks if they can sweep, they might get a 2 seed. I don't think so. I mean, again, they could sweep. They could sweep their way through a Sun Belt championship. They got an outside shot at hosting, not a 2 seed, but hosting a very outside shot. You start looking at some of these draws. The last draw I saw was Southern Miss at Baton Rouge. I don't think they want any part of that. I know they've beaten LSU before, but that was in Hattiesburg. I don't think they want any part of going to LSU. That's just my 2 cents. Whatever you think that may be worth. LSU is really good and really good at home. And I've seen that box magic way too often. I don't think you want any part of that. That's why I would rather have a worse seed and be facing somebody in that 10, 11, 12, 13 regional and have a real shot at beating them rather than facing an Auburn or an LSU. You got a tough road. The only hashtag always the bright side in that case, you're super regional, you may be hosting the super regional. That may be the bright side of that. Again, not a whole lot on the line here except bragging rights and Troy looking to secure the at-large berth, which should be secured with at least 1 win. And obviously, taking the series would secure that. And even if they get swept, I don't think they're going to fall all that far, and they'll have the Sun Belt tourney to make that up. But it's certainly going to be a fun series to watch and one that I've been looking forward to for the better part of 2 months. All right, let's go through the rest of the Sun Belt when we come back, because you don't only have some seeding, but you do have some teams that are just trying to make the tournament. All right, we'll do that after I tell you about Game Time. The NFL schedule was released last night, and you better believe I'm already looking at my fall calendar, picking which games to hit. Game Time makes scoring NFL tickets just as easy. You'll find great seats for as low as $100 thanks to exclusive discounts. And with Game Time guaranteed, your tickets are 100% authentic and will arrive on time. Being close to Indianapolis, the Colts get to host the Titans. They got the number 1 pick, Cam Ward, and the Jacksonville Jaguars, the number 2 pick, Travis Hunter. I may head up to Indianapolis to catch both those teams. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Flat brim guy, I don't think so. We're running out of these hats, and I like the hats. I actually have a pullover, same brand. I like the hat. I'm not a flat brim guy though. Doesn't look. I'm not usually a hat guy to begin with. Too vain. It's usually a good hair day, but it was a long day. And so we're going with the hat. All right. Again, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right. So obviously, besides Troy and USM, you can't forget about the number one team. So there is something to be said. Southern Miss can actually win the regular season if they sweep and Coastal Carolina get swept, which they've lost 4 games all year. I don't see Old Dominion doing that. And technically, if Southern Miss wins 2 out of 3, so no, if Southern Miss wins 2 out of 3 and Coastal Carolina loses 2 out of 3, it's still a 1-game difference. So Southern Miss has to sweep and Coastal Carolina has to lose 2 out of 3, then they would be your co-champion garbage. But in this case, they would be because they had a tiebreaker and they didn't play each other. No. So there is that possibility. I'm not sure anyone believes that's a possibility, but it's baseball and ODU is playing better, but I still think there is Coastal, Southern Miss, and Troy. And if I actually broke it down, it'd be Coastal, Southern Miss, Troy, and then everybody else. But that is still up for grabs. So you do have Coastal Carolina. They are trying to they have an outside shot at being a national seed. So that's a possibility. They may be better off being a 10. Well, here's the thing about being the national seed. They'd host the Super Regional. If they're 8, I'm not going to worry about being matched up with number 1 in the College World Series. By the time I get to Omaha, everyone's really good. I'm going to have to beat everybody when I get to Omaha. So I'll worry about that later. If I'm 8, you got to come to Conway to beat me. So that's worth fighting for. And that'd be a tough place to play. That'd be a tough place to play. So that's worth seeing if that happens. All right. So Coastal does have something to play for. They have that 11-game winning streak going on. Southern Miss's winning streak is 12. And so we'll see if Coastal can continue to win to try and strive for that national seed instead of having to go on the road for the Supers. We'll see if that happens. All right. Elsewhere on Thursday, I don't see a time. There's no time for the Coastal Old Dominion game. You do have Georgia Southern and Marshall, and these two teams are tied for 6th. The Cajuns and Old Dominion are tied for 4th. So they're, 4th and 5th, if you will. And Marshall and Georgia Southern and Texas State are all tied for 6th. So we've been over this earlier in the week. Depending on what Texas State does, the winner will be in a position to be in, a top 6 seed. All right. The loser will not be. The loser is going to play on Tuesday of the Sun Belt Conference tournament. The winner will get to play on Wednesday. All right. I'll worry about Texas State here in a minute. And then we can go over, I'll start looking at the brackets a little bit later on. All right. In fact, maybe we'll do that I got to worry about the tiebreakers coming up as well, right? You do have Georgia State and App State. All right, checking out the standings there. All right, so App State is actually, they're technically tied for 9th with Arkansas State. So South Alabama is 11th. So Arkansas State and App State are technically tied for 9th. All right, those are the last two teams. App State has a 2-game cushion over South Alabama, and that's because they won last Sunday. That's a huge ball game. If App State loses that ball game and South Alabama sweeps App State, they're tied heading into this final series. Now, South Alabama basically has to sweep on the road against ULM and hope App State basically gets swept, is the deal, right? The magic number is basically 2 for App State, a combination of their wins and South Alabama losses, and that's going to eliminate South Alabama. All right. And then we're still working our way down the schedule. You got James Madison and Texas State. Can James Madison play spoiler? Texas State's had this odd season where they got a bunch of huge wins over Texas, over A&M. Did they get I don't know, what did they do against UT Rio Grande Valley? They did lose 11-9. They were up in that ball game, by the way. In fact, they were up in that ball game heading to the bottom half of the 6th inning. If we could do math real quick, 9-6. Rio Grande Valley scored 1 in the 6th, 1 in the 7th, and 3 in the 8th to pull away. But Texas State's had an odd season where they got a bunch of amazing wins, but under 500. So we'll see if JMU, who had 2 big wins over Georgia Southern earlier in the month, can play a spoiler. And then you have Arkansas State and the Cajuns. As we mentioned, Arkansas State, really big strides under the new coach from Nichols, and just trying to make the tournament. A couple of weeks ago, they were in a position to get a top 6 seed. Let's see where they are standings wise. They are tied with App State. So let's just say Arkansas State sweeps and finishes 15-15. I mean, they would be tied with the Cajuns. And depending on what everybody else does, I guess they're 3 games behind the Cajuns. They're 3 games behind ODU. They actually have a shot at a top 6 seed. Again, probably not likely. These games are in Lafayette. Cajuns aren't all that good. I would presume the Cajuns are going to win this series. I don't think the Cajuns are going to sweep. I certainly don't think Arkansas State's going to sweep them, but that is a possibility. Let's just say. We'll see who gets the top 6 seed and who does not. All right. So there's a lot on the line. Who's getting the top 6 seed? Who doesn't have to play on Tuesday? That's the single elimination portion of the tournament. You get to Wednesday, you get into the double elimination portion of the tournament. I think everybody's playing for the consolation prize. I think it is the Coastal Carolina Southern Miss showdown. If you go back to last year, I said the same thing. We'll see what happens. You know what? We're going to go back and see what happened last year, which we do know Southern Miss won. Did they? Let's go. Let me remind me, because they did win it a couple years ago. And I think they did. And then we'll look at the breakdown for, seedings, who plays who, and what could be the possible matchups, because you do need a 4th team. People keep on asking me who the dark horse is. I don't have a dark horse. But someone has to play Coastal or Southern Miss or Troy. I presume Troy and Southern Miss are playing each other, but someone has to play the other team. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll do that when we get back after I tell you about Wayfair. The days are getting longer, the weather's warming up, and people are spending more time outside, which means it's a perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. Whether you're working with a big backyard or small balcony, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor, they've got it all and the prices to fit your budget. Grab a new patio dining set and some string lights from Wayfair to help extend your outdoor space. The delivery is free and hassle-free, even for the big stuff. Whether you're entertaining guests or just relaxing solo, shop Wayfair to help unwind. All right, quickly, as a reminder, I got it right. Those shelves back there from Wayfair, and if you could see it, the desk that I'm working on is also from Wayfair. Shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, quick refresher course. Mostly because a little brain cramp. 23-24 championships. Let's get to baseball. All right, regular season was the Cajuns, and Southern Miss was the champions, but I don't feel like they beat Georgia Southern. All right. Let's recap last year's tournament for a little bit. Coastal came in as a 7 seed, right? They beat Georgia State. Old Dominion beat South Alabama, single elimination. Troy was the 3 seed. They defeated App State. Southern Miss defeated Coastal Carolina as a number 2 seed. Old Dominion took care of the Cajuns, number 1 seed, 7-3, right? Cajuns ran out of gas last year for the conference tournament, all right? And Georgia Southern sets down number 4 seed, James Madison. App State comes back, eliminates Coastal Carolina. They're done. James Madison takes care of the Cajuns. They beat them 10-9. Cajuns are done. Southern Miss beats Troy 6-5. Troy is not quite done. And Georgia Southern beats Old Dominion. All right. Then we go to Friday. App State beats Troy. Troy is done. James Madison beats Old Dominion. Old Dominion is done. Southern Miss beats App State. And Georgia Southern beats James Madison. So now you got Southern Miss beating Georgia Southern 14-11. It was the number 2 seed versus the number 5 seed. And let me see if we got the live stats. We don't actually have the live stats on this game still up here, do we? Because this was quite the baseball game. I remember watching this game. This game went back and forth, and wouldn't you know, we do. Okay. USM scored 5 runs in the 9th inning. This game got off to a 4-3 start. Southern Miss scored 3 in the first. Georgia Southern came back to score 4. Georgia Southern scored 2 in the third. Southern Miss 1 in the fourth. They scored 2 in the fifth. Georgia Southern scored 2 in the fifth. They each scored 3 in the 7th inning, which makes it, let's see here, 6. Obviously 11. 11-9. Heading into the top half of the 9th inning, and Southern Miss just explodes for 5 runs. In fact, they got 2 runs before they got an out. They got a single, another single, another single. They got the bases loaded. They got an error on the second baseman, 2 runs scored to tie the ball game up, and then a stolen base before a strikeout. So the game was already tied at 11 before they recorded 1 out. And Southern Miss went on to win it. Now, again, this year's going to be different. Not so much the tournament. Anything can happen in the tournament. Coastal's better to begin with. But I think Coastal Carolina and Southern Miss are that much better than everybody else that, again, anything less than a super regional is a disappointing season. That's where we are at this point in time, barring injury. All right. You guys know this. I'm much more of a reasons guy than an excuse guy. And if a couple of key players go down in the next couple of weeks, those are reasons, not excuses. If we lose an all-star catcher or our number 1 or 2 pitchers, sorry, next guy up doesn't apply. All right. And so that's where we are. All right. I do want to go to the brackets here real quickly, and probably we'll get this printed up so I can see where we are. So the 7 seed. All right. So the 7 and 10 seed play, and then the 8 and 9 seed play. So the number 3 seed plays the 6 seed. All right. The number 2 seed is TBD. The number 1 seed is TBD because they play the winners from Tuesday, and the number 4 seed plays the number 5 seed. And then you got to have the winners and the losers. So basically what we're doing here you go. The 4 seed, here's where it is. The 4 seed in the Sun Belt is going to avoid Coastal, Troy, and Southern Miss first go around. All right. I don't know if you want to save your Friday night pitcher for that outing necessarily. Who knows, because right now that would we'll just say what the standings are. Cajuns and ODU are 4-5. They're both actually tied for 4th. But that could be the 4-5 matchup. And can I figure out who they're playing? Let's see here. Game 6. Winner, game 10 would be winner game 5 and game 6. So that would be, here's the thing. So the winner of that 4-5 matchup would get the number 1 seed. You'd get Coastal. All right. Well, you're going to face one of those 3 teams in the next round. The point is, you don't have to face them first round. All right. Well, we'll see how that goes. All right. So that's the point of finishing 4th. That's the advantage of finishing 4th or 5th. All right. That would be the advantage of finishing 4th or 5th. You don't have to face Coastal, Southern Miss, or Troy on Wednesday. All right. You may be able to get a win under your belt. I'd say not having to face your pitch your best pitcher, but you may have to get past the other team's best pitcher. You may not be able to save that, just to get to the next guy. All right, we will see. All right, the plan, we can see. We will recap the game for Friday. We absolutely will, and the rest of the action. On a side note, Northeastern has another conference series. Again, they're putting themselves in a spot where they don't have to sweep anymore or win their conference tournament to get in. They do have an RPI of 24. So we're just keeping an eye on that because it could affect Southern Miss and or Troy. And that's my boy Glavin. So we'll have a full recap of Thursday's action tomorrow. But the plan is for early next week, I'll probably drop it on Monday to have Matt Stewart on. He'll have the call of the Sun Belt Conference tournament, and we'll preview the tournament with our guy, Matt Stewart. He'll have the call on ESPN Plus. All right. So he'll do that. And I think he's going to join me on for Monday's episode. May hold it till Tuesday, but the thing is, they're playing Tuesday. So I may give everybody a chance to see it on Monday. Figured Monday's the better time to do it anyways. So, all right, everybody have a great Thursday. Really looking forward to the action. Thank you much for tuning in. Do you think I'm a flat brim guy or not? I don't think so, but I do like the hat. All right. 13 is the best we got, just to let you know. You've been watching Lockdown Sunbelt. I'm Dave Schultz, your host. Thanks so much for tuning in. Everybody have a great Thursday. I will talk to you again on Friday.